We're ready? Yes? Okay. Shalom lechulam, Erev Tov. Steve Eisenberg here in sunny Miami Beach, Bal Harbor. So last week I had said that while most of the world are hunkered down watching Netflix and watching the media, my co-founder, Jody Samuels, is putting together programs like this. Kol HaKavod. Thank you, Jody Samuels, for being you and all that you do for the Jewish people. And of course, nothing works at JSCNY logistically without Stacy Katz. Thank you, Jody. And thank you, Shoshana Jen, for helping putting this amazing program together. So Erev Tov, Shalom Cholam. So today, as we know, today is Yom Hazikaron. And we pay homage, we pay respect, we pay our love to those Kedoshim, young and old, secular, religious, Mashadi, Tarani, Esfahani, for those of you know, it's Persian Jews, Sephardi, Ashkenazi, who gave their lives for us to have what we call this amazing Medina Yisrael, the modern state of Israel. How many of you, okay, everyone, answer the question. How many of you have been to Yerushalayim? Raise your hands right now. How many of you have been to Tel Aviv? Raise your hands. How many of you have been to Haifa? Raise your hands. How many of you have been to Haifa? I'm sorry, the Kinneret? Raise your hands. Beersheba, Avdat, Netivot, Ramat Gan, Yerushalayim. And the only reason I believe we have been able to see these amazing places in our land is because at any given moment, there are hundreds of thousands of our people who are on the land, in the sea, in the air, and all over the world to make sure that this country, Medina Yisrael, exists in ways that we have no idea, but has come as tremendous, tremendous costs to our people, tremendous costs. How many young people, older people, never realized their dreams of going to college, getting married, seeing the world, living their lives, but they risked their lives. They gave their lives for Klal Yisrael, for Am Yisrael, for Medina Yisrael. To be a Jew,
Now Steve Eisenberg. Okay. Oh, we had a little mishap. I think Steve Eisenberg's reception fell out, and we will come right back. 6 participants, go on participants. Great. I think you made it back, Steve.
Okay, I don't know what's going on. Can you see me? Are we
Yeah,
good?
we got you. Good.
Okay, all right, fine. So to be a Jew means to remember, okay? They say that the French are amazing when it comes to food. The Italians are amazing when it comes to clothing design, and Jews, our thing is survival, but we do more than survive, we thrive. And I believe the vitamin of the Jewish people to survive and thrive is to remember. We have in the Parsha, which we'll get to, please God, in August, Ha'azinu. And the Pasuk says, Zachar Yemos Olam, that a Jew is obligated to remember one's history individually and collectively. This is the key to Jewish survival and thrival, if that's the word. That we have the obligation to remember. We have Zachar Shabbos L'Kacho, remember the Shabbos. We have Zecher Yetzias Mitzrayim, that a Jew is obligated to remember the leaving of Egypt, because every Jew, the Torah is teaching us, is going to have their own personal Egypt, individually, collectively. And the goal of the Jew is to leave your Egypt, individually, collectively, to move on. And so, therefore, we also have Yom Hazikaron. And where do we see this articulated in the most beautiful way? Is at a wedding. We have a chassan and kala, we have a bride and bridegroom getting married, their happiest moment in their lives. And we say, stop, break the glass. Remember that 2,000 years ago, what happened to the Jewish people. That millions of Jews were killed and were exiled. We lost our land. We lost our sovereignty. We lost our freedom. What's the understanding? I heard this from Rabbi Simon Jacobson, that if a Jew can't remember pain in the time of great joy, he can't have great joy in the time of suffering. So we remember. We have Yizkor, Yom Hazikaron. To be a Jew means to say thank you, Todah Rabbah. We are called Jews because the 10 tribes are lost. Some said they live in Great Neck, some said they live in Great Neck, okay? But the fact is that most of us come from the tribe of Yehuda and Benjamin. And the word Yehuda, Yehudim, come from the fact that we came from Yehuda. The derivation is from Todah. To be a Jew means to say thank you. And Yom HaZikaron, we are saying thank you, if we could ever say thank you, to all those who gave their lives that we can have this Medina Israel. By the way, the census just came out yesterday, and that shows that almost 7 million Jews are living in Israel out of 9 million. 7 million. This is the first time in 2,000 years, majority of our people are now living in the land of Israel. Amazing, amazing. And I believe it's because of Kes we have Hashem, but it's because we have the soldiers of Israel and those who gave their lives so that we should be able to have this land. Just want to end with this. If you ask any person who was an adult in 1948 and ask them where were they when the state of Israel was declared, and where were they when Hey Eor, 1940, the Independence Day, they could say exactly where they were. So too with ourselves. You ask any person in this world, an adult, where were they at 9/11? They could say exactly where they were. This was a monumental event in our lives. In a few days, we're going to have Yom Ha'atzmaut. Okay, today, Yom Zikaron, last week, Yom HaShoah. We are in tremendous pain of the losses of our people, but yet we celebrate in a few days Yom Ha'atzmaut. This is Jewish life. The tragedy and Simcha is next to each other. We have to remember the past to catapult ourselves forward. In a few days, we dance, we rejoice. Unfortunately, not in the streets, in our homes, in our hearts, is Yom Ha'atzmaut, the great, great bracha that we have in Israel. And with that is I wish you all a amazing Yom Ha'atzmaut. And then we have to know this is Magefa, this too shall end. Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon had a ring, and on the ring it said, this too shall pass. And we're in a very, very special time period. And we know that Rabbi Kiva's students passed away, and in Lag BaOmer, Magefa stopped. The plague stopped. His students stopped dying. And please God, B'Yetzer Hashem, so too we're going to see amazing, amazing things happening that exponentially people are going to stop getting sick. Today, I read only 23 new cases of kavod, in Eretz Israel is we should only see good things. We remember the past to remember that things are going to be amazing. Yemot HaMashiach. Thank you so much. Stacey, Jody, and Shoshana. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Okay, great. In just a few minutes, we will stand in silence for 1 minute as the national siren blares throughout Israel in remembrance of Israel's fallen soldiers and victims of terror. Unlike this year, every year I visit Har Herzl, Israel's national military cemetery, along with thousands of families and mourners remembering their loved ones that fell. As the siren blares, I close my eyes. Chills overcome my body. When I hear the siren, I think of all those who made this ultimate sacrifice in order for us to be here today as a free nation. I think of lone soldiers like Max Steinberg, who was friends with many of my friends from college in Los Angeles, and whose body I witnessed being lowered into his final resting spot. While his family remains alive forever, while his memory remains alive forever, I think of the story of Michael Levin, whose parents we'll hear later on, whose grave I visit every year, and who was determined to return to Israel to protect his people during the Second Lebanon War. I think about the bus I almost stepped on, that moments later blew up into pieces. And I think about our people's persecution, our only crime, wanting to be a free people in our land. Towards the end of the siren, I think of hope. I find comfort in the resilience of our people, the solidarity of our people. Over 30,000 people attended the funeral of Max Steinberg, brothers and sisters, family he never knew he had. But I never forget that I'm standing in the sovereign state of Israel due to the sacrifices of those we remember today. I found this excerpt from an article particularly interesting about the connection of mourning and sirens in the Torah. First, there's the phase of Yom Hazikaron itself. With respect to Passover, Pesach, we read in the Torah, "This day shall be to you one of remembrance, one of Zikaron." And regarding Rosh Hashanah, a sacred occasion commemorated with loud blast, Zikaron Teruah. In a different context, trumpet blasts and remembrance are associated with war. When you are at war in your land against an aggressor who attacks you, you shall sound short blasts on the trumpet, that you may be remembered before the Lord your God and be delivered from your enemies. Passover makes us recall the Exodus, whereas the shofar's blast during the 7th month of the biblical calendar plays a similar role to that of the trumpet's blast in wartime. The blast of the shofar or trumpet, it's a prayer, reminding God of Israel's distress. Air raid sirens can be seen as a modern day version of the biblical connection between the shofar blast, war and remembrance. The siren will blare in a second. Following the siren, it's customary to lower the flag to half staff as a sign of respect and sorrow to fallen ones, which will be followed by a trumpet blast, usually played during the lowering of the flag. Every day, we're so focused on our daily responsibilities and thinking about the future. For the next minute, let's take a moment to reflect on the past and really, truly be present. This is the time to mourn and remember those who have sacrificed for our freedom. After the sacrifice, we'll hear stories that will give meaning to those sacrifices, that enable us to be a free people in our land. We're all asked to stand as we await the siren. In Israel, at this point, we would be lowering the flag to half staff. Tonight, we will be lowering the flag to half staff in our hearts as we listen to the sound of the trumpet.
We ready to go? This evening, we are here to honor the brave men and women who continue to fight every day to protect Israel and remember the 23,816 who have given their lives. We remember the 4,166 innocent men, women, and children who have been murdered by terrorists, and those who continue to live every day with the trauma of what they've been through and the loss of their loved ones. On June 11, 2003, I was on board bus number 14 in Jerusalem when an 18-year-old Palestinian terrorist boarded my bus strapped with explosives and injured over 100 of us and murdered 17 innocent people, including everyone seated and standing around me. From that experience, Strength to Strength was established, working with victims of terrorism globally to help them heal and move forward. I'm honored tonight to be able to introduce our speakers, members of Strength to Strength, and of Tikvot, an organization in Israel who works with injured soldiers and victims of terrorism doing extreme sports. Tonight, we are here to honor and remember. You will hear stories of tragedy and survival, strength and resilience. My good friend Naftali Moses, who lives in Toccoa, who made Aliyah from Long Island over 30 years ago. On March 6, 2008, his oldest son, Avram David, was murdered by terrorists in the Merkaz Harav Yeshiva at the age of 16. Then you will hear from Yaron Porter, an IDF veteran suffering from PTSD. Yaron is a hero in every sense of the word. He will share his story about the elite classified unit he served in and his story of survival. And you will hear the amazing Sherry Wise, who currently lives in Vancouver. Sherry will share with you what she was doing in Israel and how she survived a triple bombing attack on Ben Yehuda on September 4th, 1997. She will share her story, and more importantly, you will see empowerment and strength after tragedy and how to move forward and give back. We are honored to have each of them share their personal stories with us tonight.
סך הכל רצית להביא קצת אור, לראות את הים ולחזור. סך הכל רצית להבין קצת יותר, כדי להבין קצת פחות ולחיות עוד יום. מה כבר ביקשת? סך הכל להושיט ידך לעולם, לפתוח דלת חדשה, ישנה. סך הכל אתה ילד קטן שחושש מן העולם ונסגר עוד ועוד. סך הכל רצית להביא קצת דבש, לשמח את העולם, לחיות עוד יום. מה כבר ביקשת? סך הכל הושיט ידך לעולם, לפתוח דלת חדשה, ישנה.
Good evening, those in Israel. Good afternoon to those west of us. I'd like to start sharing with a poem that was written by Israel's national poet in the wake of a 1903 pogrom in the community of Kishinev. As pogroms go, it wasn't horrific. As a matter of fact, only 40 or so odd people were murdered. But there happened to be a New York Times reporter nearby, and it made great waves in the newfangled electronic media of telegraph, and quickly became known. בעיר ההרגה, קום לך לך על עיר ההרגה, ובאת אל החצרות, וביניך תראה ובידך תמשש על הגדרות, ועל העצים ועל האבנים ועל גבי טיח הכתרים, את הדם הקרוש, את המוח הנקשה של החיים. Get up and go to the city of killing, and come into the courtyards, and with your eyes see and with your hands feel along the fences and the trees and the rocks and the plaster of the walls, the dried blood and hardened brain matter of the victims. Chaim Nachman Bialik starts his poem, an epic poem, going page after page after page, by telling us, if you want to understand something about tragedy, leave my words by the wayside. Kum lech lecha, get up and go and see with your own eyes, feel with your own hands what happened there. Because mere words cannot do justice to something as evil as a pogrom that took 40 innocent Jewish lives. There's no way that I can do justice with mere words, even with pictures, to what the loss of a child means. In 2008, on March 6th, was Rosh Chodesh Adar, the first day of the Hebrew month of Adar, the most joyous month in the Hebrew calendar. And a white van pulled up to Merkaz Arav Yeshiva, the flagship yeshiva of religious Zionism in the heart of Jerusalem. And out of that white van, a man came out holding a television box. He walked with a big box up the steps into the courtyard, and there were 3 students kibitzing together on the steps. They looked one at the other and made a joke. Who ordered a TV? This is the yeshiva. We don't watch television here. And out of the box came not a television, but a Kalashnikov assault rifle, a combat vest loaded with hundreds and hundreds of bullets in their magazines, 2 pistols, and more. The 18-year-old boy who was joking, Yonadav Hirschfeld, was the first one to be shot. He wasn't killed right away. He was just wounded. He managed to run inside the yeshiva from the courtyard, bleeding heavily, down 2 flights of steps. After the murder spree ended, paramedics were searching for survivors. They followed the trail of blood down the steps and were surprised that the trail doubled back, went up a few steps, and then went back down again. Later, they realized that Yonadav had dropped the Gemara that he was carrying, went back up a few steps to pick it up, and continued running down to get away from the terrorists. Unfortunately, by the time he was found, he had bled out instead. The terrorist then turned to his right in the courtyard and shot the next night's victim, Oirot, another 18-year-old, was a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. Didn't help against the Kalashnikov at close range. Behind him was the third victim, Yonatan Eldar. Yonatan saw what was going on, and he turned to run away. He was shot in the back by the heroic terrorist. By now, after all the shooting, people outside the yeshiva realized what was going on and began to flee. Inside, however, no one was sure whether the loud noises they were hearing were fireworks, firecrackers to celebrate the new month, or shots. The terrorist opened the door to the yeshiva library, went inside, and everyone knew. His first victim didn't even have a chance to get up from the table where he was sitting and learning. 26-year-old Doron Maharata was an Ethiopian who came with his family from Ethiopia and decided while he was in high school that he wanted to come and learn at Yeshivat Merkaz Harad. And there he was, I think, for almost 10 years, studying so that he could become a rabbi to the Ethiopian community here in Israel. At 26, he was the oldest victim that night, shot down, dead before he got a chance to move. Everyone else scurried away, but There was nowhere else to run. The back door to the library had been locked. The only place to go was into the stacks, the shelves of books that mark any library. And there, my son, Abraham David, and his study partner, his Chavruta, Segev, Pneel Avichail, both 16 years old, in 10th grade, along with Neria Cohen, 9th grader, the youngest victim that night, at only 15, and Yochai Lifshitz, who was a 12th grader, 18 years old. They all ran into the stacks. The wall of the library building behind them, the stacks of the holy books they had come to study on either side. And it was there that the terrorist, walking from stack to stack to stack, found the rest of his victims that night and shot them at close range with his assault rifle. There is no way merely hearing the story can give anybody an idea of what it means to go through an experience. A few months after our children were killed, a number of the family members were sitting together with a social worker and a psychologist in a support group. And for some reason, we all began to tell the story of how we heard the news that night, where we were, who called us, maybe we heard on the radio, and how we tracked down lead after lead after lead. And there was kind of a flow chart of possibilities that our children were still alive, even though they weren't answering their cell phones, even though none of their friends had seen them, even though they weren't at their grandparents, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this flow chart of possibilities led to only one possible conclusion, that they were among the victims. But everyone had the exact same story, that while we told the story from memory a few months down the road, it was clear that at point X or point Y, it was clear to us now that at that moment, it should have been obvious that our children had been killed. During the night, while we were looking, everyone said exactly the same thing, that thought never occurred to them. Each and every parent had the same exact feeling of not even considering until they found out for sure that their child had been among those killed. There's an apocryphal story about the Rambam, about Maimonides, who was famous not only as a Jewish scholar, but also as a physician to 1,000 years ago, to the vizier, king of Egypt. And someone said to the Rambam, who was a scientific medical practitioner, that a magician had come to town and cured a child of blindness who had been born blind and had never seen before and was now granted the gift of sight. the Rambam, who vociferously acted against anything that reeked of mystic or magic, asked that this wonder worker, this magician, along with the child, be brought to him. It was done. And the Rambam proceeded to take out a number of colored handkerchiefs and asked the child to identify by color. Here, this one is red. Here, this one is yellow. Here, this one is blue. And everyone stood around amazed. And the magician said, you see, not only is the child sighted now, but he can also see color. The Rambam just shook his head and said, you're a charlatan and a liar. Now, of course, we wouldn't be telling the story if the Rambam wasn't right. How did the Rambam know this? Because he said to the magician, someone who was born blind and now gained his sight would have no conception of what color was, even if physically they could see it. In the same way, those who have not gone through such a horrific loss can have no conception of what that means, what that feels like, how that divides one's life into all that came before and all that came after the moment that one found out that one's child was no longer among the living. Kum lech lecha al ira harega. Get up and go to the city of Kiev. Even a poet with the prowess of Chaim Nachman Bialik tells us that it is impossible to explain without actually being there. A few years ago, on what would have been my son's 24th birthday, I wrote a piece. This piece speaks about one of the pictures in the slide presentation that began with pictures of my son growing up. It's the picture of the blacksmith. And I'd like to read that piece now, and with that conclude. Old shoes. The sneaker in the picture is black leather. It has a slightly pebble texture, yet is smooth to the touch. The laces are a stretchy nylon that holds the knot well. The soles, tough black rubber, molded with stiff ridges under the arch, are attached with a band of white, separating top from bottom. I can still feel the way those shoes wrapped up and over the sides of my feet, holding strong and tight, cupping my arch from underneath. I remember how they snugged close just over my ankle for support, and the bounce that they added after a long day in work shoes. For years, lacing them up each Tuesday night was a ritual delineating the rest of the week from game time. With them began the weekly dose of pivots and passes, hit and miss shots, skin knees after loose balls, arguments, curses, laughter, elbows to the ribs, and all the general sweaty camaraderie of middle-aged basketball. At some point, after too many smashed toes, torn muscles, jammed fingers, my Tuesday evenings were given over to more sedate pursuits. The shoes got a rest. They sat gathering dust until my 16-year-old, probably without permission, decided to scavenge them from the back of my closet. On his thinner feet, there was room for 2 socks. helping to keep him warm during the hours of intense inactivity he spent sitting in the cold Beit Midrash of his school. Once we had spent our time together, hiking, biking, and playing endless rounds of one-on-one and horse, but eventually he put that aside. Instead, we learned Talmud together. No more ball for him. For nearly a year, his only pastime was Torah study. I don't know where the shoes are now. In the picture, the one sneaker lies on its side in the middle of the frame. To the left, a pair of crumpled pants, part of a curving belt freed from the waist loops, and a faded orange ribbon, a worn-out reminder of Gush Katif. On the right, spread in an uneven layer on the grouted terrazzo floor, is a thick smear of sticky, drying blood. The dark red stain is dense further from the shoe, as if a painter spread it from the far edge to the middle with a spatula, leaving off before evenly finishing the job. Someone took my old shoes off my son. Probably a medic frantically searching for some sign that this thin blonde boy lying in a pool of blood on the cold stone floor might have a hope, before realizing there was none. Whoever it was left them, along with the pants, on the floor, and a picture was taken. Perhaps when my son's stripped body was being zipped into its white body bag. Whoever took it had no inkling of what those shoes contained. They held more than the sweat of 100 block shots and crafty steals and hard-fought rebounds and showing my sons how to hit the backboard high from 2 steps above the baseline. More than memories of pushing and beginning to feel its year's body into the pseudo battle of head fakes and off-color jokes, which got left behind on the court each week, as aging combatants turned back into clerks and accountants and teachers. These black Nikes were passed down from a father holding on to a piece of his own youth, to a son on the cusp of adulthood, beginning to be able to literally fill his own father's shoes. Once they squeaked and skittered across the paint. Later they trod quietly before dawn from dorm room to study hall for early morning. They were on his feet that night, when bewildered by the gunshots ringing out in the library, he rose up from where he sat, pivoted right and darted between the stacks. I can imagine him pushing his chair back, standing, feeling for the grip of those rubber soles on the stone tile and making his move. The mismatch between 16-year-old high school student and full-grown, heavily armed terrorist, and then, of course, with my son's murder. Those old Nikes that played them last. All that's left of them is a picture. And the knowledge that my son's salvage had, only briefly, taken a piece of me, old, sweaty, stained as it was, and made it his own. I ask myself from time to time whether a father can ever really expect. Thank you for listening.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Good morning. Good day. Everybody can hear me? Okay. So, okay, amazing. We're on. So, my name is Yaron Porter. I'm 36 years old. I'm a disabled veteran from the Israeli Special Forces. I served in a unit, a classified unit, equivalent to the Navy SEALs, Delta Force maybe, kicking the door kind of unit. I lifted to the Army in 2003, served until my injury, the PTSD, in 2011. 2012, I finished with my duty. My story starts at the 18th of August. Of course, I did lots of operations, lots of activities in my unit, in my duty. But in 2011, 18th of August, was one particular event that really affects me. This is the only one that I've been injured in, not physical, of course, it's mental. So I started my day the 18th of August, 2011. It was Thursday morning, beautiful morning, middle of August. Everybody that's been in Israel, in Eilat, my hometown, it's like the high season, amazing summer and everything. I was in the reserve in this period, which means I finished with my 3 years service, and now I'm like need to do few. Usually you do 3 weeks to 1 month a year, but in my unit you do a little bit more, around 3 to 5 months a year. But day to day, you are in your own life. You're like a civilian. You have like your business or your work, and you're doing in the reserve what we have to do in our unit. So this particular morning, I woke up. My favorite hobby is kite surfing. There was amazing wind. I went to the beach. 2-session kite surfing. For those who don't know, kite surfing, it's like a water sport, extreme sport. It's like surfing behind the kite, using the wind. So having fun, enjoying, getting back to the beach, laying down my gear, my kite surfing gear, and looking at my phone. Usually we need to be connected to our phone because in my unit, we need to be like very, very, we need to be in preparation all the time. If anything happens, we need to respond very quick. So I'm checking my phone for messages and I see a message from the unit commander. All the warriors come to the unit immediately. There is a terror attack, 3 exclamation points. And I'm looking for the word exercise, drill, practice, or something like this, and I can't find it. I understand this is the real deal. I'm asking from one of my friends to fold my kite surfing gear. I'm asking from another friend to take me, to drive my car. During the time he's driving, I'm putting my boots, my uniform, which is in my car, and driving towards my unit. On my way, I'm getting a phone call from my team leader. I served in Terror Monkeys team in my unit. It's the guy that coming from the rooftop and jumping with special equipment to the balconies and to the windows. And I'm getting a phone call from my team leader, and he's telling me, put a bullet inside your handgun. There is terrorists inside Israel already. There is casualties. There is lots of wounded. Open your eyes 360 degrees. As I told you, I've been in lots of operations and stuff. This is the first time that I got something like this. Now, I want to stop here and explain something. My unit is a little bit different. Here in the United States, you send troops and warriors like 15, 12, 20 hours away from here to protect your country. In Israel, you're sending sometimes people a few hours to the north, to Gaza Strip, to Lebanon, to protect the country. In my unit, it's the only one, by the way, you're protecting literally your family. You're protecting your house. It's warriors that come from Eilat City and protecting Eilat City. So try to imagine that I'm driving in my car. I need to put the bullet inside my gun. I'm still inside the city and this in this moment. And like my family is behind me. My parents, my brother is at the sea, my sister is at the mall, and I understand that there is terrorists inside Israel already. I'm putting a bullet in my gun. We're driving to the unit. We're arriving to the unit something like 15 minutes after the moment I finish kite surfing. You can tell there was mayhem, everybody running all over the place. Like there is a feeling there's something big is happening. I'm putting my gear on me, the communication. I starting to hear from the area, casualties, wounded, there is terrorists. You understand something serious is happening. From the unit, something like 10, 12 minutes later, we arriving to the scene. Now, at the scene, I want you to imagine and to understand that this is 27 minutes after I finished kite surfing. After finished kite surfing at the sun of Eilat, laying down my gear, 27 minutes after, I'm getting off the team vehicle, and the picture that I saw was like this. Above us, there was a helicopter, attack helicopter of the Israeli Air Force. On my right, I see a bus burning in flames. I will stop here and explain something. A bus that's coming to Eilat in the middle of August, burning in flames. For my understanding, there is 70 people inside this bus. By a miracle in the hand of God, this bus came from repairment. It was burning, but we knew it only in the evening. When we came to the scene, for my understanding as a warrior, there is 70 people burning alive inside this bus, and you can't do anything because you need to eliminate the threat, first of all. Again, I knew it only after, like I knew it in the evening. I was in a feeling when I was there until the evening. I was with the feeling that 70 people that I know at least half of them, because it's Eilat, it's a very small city, is burning alive in this bus. In the middle of the road, like in front of me, there was a Golani Brigade soldier lying on the road. I will tell you something crazy about it soon. A little bit behind me, a private car with 4 family members that murdered earlier this day by the terrorists. On my left, I see few warriors from my unit and from the Yamam. Yamam is like the Israeli SWAT. A little bit above them, with advantage of height, 20 to 24 terrorists wearing blacks with customs of Egyptian police officers to confuse us. 10 more police officers. Now I'm trying to assess the situation. So there is 25 to 35 terrorists from my understanding. And I know there is terrorists inside Israel because of the phone call that I got from my team leader. So from my understanding, there is 35, 45, 50 terrorists. And at this particular moment that I just arrived, it's not all the units. It's like the first team. We were the first responders. So it was a crazy situation. On my back, 25 minutes behind my back, this is my family, my parents, my little brother, my sister. I'm literally protecting my family. If those terrorists pass me, for my understanding, my family is in risk. My family, my friends, my employees, my business, my kindergarten. It's literally protecting your house, your home, like in old Sparta. I told you I will tell you something crazy about the guy that was lying on the road. So here it's come. As if all what I told you is not strong enough, 27 minutes after finished kite surfing, I hear a whistle between the mountains, and the terrorists shoot a missile towards the helicopter. Now, when you shoot a missile towards the helicopter, it takes few seconds. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. In those seconds, this is the 4 or 5 first seconds that I arrived to the scene. If this rocket hitting the helicopter is exploding on me and on my team. And this was my first 5 seconds. It was very surrealistic. Of course, he missed the helicopter moved, shot back, killed this link of terrorists that shoot the missile. And from here, everything became very, very fast. Everything is like commands. Everybody know what it's supposed to do. And the fight starts from this second. As I said, everything became very, very fast. We clashed with them face to face very, very few. It was like 1-2 minutes later. They were shooting at us, we were shooting at them. By the way, we couldn't shoot at them until they shoot at us first. Like we give them the advantage. Why? Because we are the most moral army in the world. It's not just a slogan. I can tell you from the field. They told us you can't shoot until they shoot at you, because we can injure or we can kill Egyptian police officer, which country we have a peace agreement with. So we give them the advantage. They are more than us. They have the height advantage, and they can shoot at us first, and only then we can respond. We blocked them. We blocked the attempt to invade the lot. We killed like most of them in the first attack. And then my team leader tell me, go bring the Golani Brigade soldier. Go bring the Golani Brigade soldier from the road. There is a motivation of the terrorists to bring him to kidnap him. So I'm finding myself running under heavy fire to bring this soldier that's lying on the road. I think in my heart that I'm going to save someone's life to bring him back to his family. And this is what holds me, because you're running to the most dangerous point, like the killing zone, the most hottest spot of the battle. The only thing that holds me, that I understand that I'm going to help bring someone alive, bring someone to his parents, sabotage the attempt of the terrorists to kidnap him inside Egypt, Gaza, who knows. And I'm running there with 3 warriors. 2 of them was in the car, me and another one went to bring him. And as soon as I get there, we're talking about 32 minutes after I finished kite surfing. 32 minutes after I finished kite surfing, I'm standing there and I'm watching this poor soldier. Unfortunately, was dead. He got shot in his head from a very close distance from his own soldier. Friendly fire, sort of speaking. I told you, I will tell you something crazy about him. His name was Moshe Naftali. The lecture that was before my lecture name is Naftali Moses. This is how the world is small, and how the world is a small place for our nation. Anyway, of course, I evacuate him as fast as possible. We bring him back, and no one from my team got injured or anything. It was successful, but the image that I saw that moment affected me, and we went back, everyone to his life, and it's very familiar to the Yom Hazikaron and the Memorial Day and Independence Day of the Israeli, the switch between sad to happiness. After this whole situation, I go back to my life. As I told you, I'm a civilian. This is what in the reserve. I'm owner of nightclubs, bars, restaurant. That particular evening, I went to my nightclub, and 3,000 people is dancing, drinking, having fun, and I need to do the switch. I just saw a dead body. I just evacuated that guy, and it was very, very hard for me, the switch between this to that. Although this is like the purpose of my unit. My unit will do whatever they do. They see whatever they see. So those 3,000 people won't feel threat. They can still dance and have fun and enjoy life. From this moment, I'm starting, my life is starting to be very, very difficult. Very weird things starting to happen to me. I'm starting to have very strong nightmares. Everything I built till this moment, I'm breaking it in few months. In 6 years, I built like businesses and connections and everything collapsing. I don't understand why. I don't understand why it's happening to me. Few years later, a good friend of mine that is an activist with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, told me, listen, my friend is suffering from PTSD. He connected me with a group of warriors, with a lawyer that is warrior suffering from PTSD himself, and helping out others. And they literally saved my life. I was like in a black hole, in a very, very dark place. And today I'm doing the same like they did with me. I'm in a much, much better place. I help others. I track and help to rehabilitate people with severe PTSD, those with the worst cases. I'm going around the world. I'm doing lectures. I'm raising awareness, raising funds to help those guys. And this was me. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm honored to share my story with you today. I'm here to tell you the story of how I survived a triple suicide bombing on Ben Yehuda Street in 1987. When I tell people this story, I always like to start with one of my favorite quotes. So I'll do that for you. You have to have faith that there is a reason you go through certain things. I can't say I'm glad to go through pain, but in a way one must in order to gain courage and really feel joy. I grew up in Winnipeg, which is in Canada, And my dad was a dentist and my mother was a hygienist. And it seemed like dentistry was always going to be my chosen career path. I completed my education in Winnipeg and then went on to dental school in Chicago at Northwestern University. And in 1995, I moved to Vancouver to do an oral surgery residency here at Vancouver General Hospital. After I'd been a dentist about 2 years, in 1997, I was reading the Jewish Bulletin newspaper here and found an ad for a program called Dental Volunteers for Israel. I'd always wanted to go to Israel. I'd never been, and I loved the idea of being able to do something I love, dentistry, while giving back to the Jewish community and being in Israel. I called the number, but unfortunately there was a year-long waiting list, and so I put it out of my mind and continued on working here in Vancouver. A week later, Dental Volunteers for Israel called me and told me that a dentist had dropped out and there was a spot open if I could come next month. I was so excited. I was going to be working at a clinic that provided free dentistry to underprivileged children, both Arabs and Jews. I thought there's no way I should say no. But some doubt set in because there had been numerous suicide bombings in Israel around that time, including the Mechane Yehuda bombing just a few weeks earlier. I remember being at a cottage with my mom and trying to decide whether I should go and weighing the pros and cons. And I turned to her and said that I was going to go. And I actually said to her, if something's going to happen, it's going to happen. I actually said those words. I can think about that conversation to this day. Once I got to Israel, the experience of working with the children in the dental clinic was everything I hoped it would be and more. It was humbling, immensely satisfying, and it filled me with a lot of joy. Every day I worked at that clinic, I was happy. I felt like it was the best decision I've ever made. I spent a total of 3 weeks volunteering at the clinic, and on my last day, I said goodbye to all the new friends I'd made at the clinic and headed for lunch at an outdoor cafe on Ben Yehuda Street called the Village Green. Ben Yehuda is a pedestrian-only area filled with tourists and locals having lots of different places to eat lunch, and Judaica, it's beautiful. I remember thinking what a glorious day it was. I was meeting up with friends I'd met during my stay, and I planned to spend an additional 2 weeks traveling through Israel with one of them. During the lunch, I noticed a large man walk by dressed in women's clothing, carrying 2 enormous bags. It seemed strange to me, but I was so enjoying my lunch, I didn't give it another thought. Little did I know, he was one of the 3 suicide bombers strapped with nail-studded bombs, and he was about to set off the first of 3 separate explosions, only steps away from where I was sitting. A second terrorist was already setting himself up across the street in front of the Israeli discount bank. But of course, at the time, I had no idea what was going to happen. Standing in front of my table was a group of young schoolgirls, probably around 14 years old. I remember because they were so loud and excited to be there celebrating their friend's birthday. They had balloons and gifts and were singing Yom Huledet Sameach, happy birthday, at the top of their lungs. I remember thinking how happy they seemed. It was a particularly warm day and I was sitting directly in the sun, and I turned to my friend that I was having lunch with and said, would you mind switching seats with me? And she said, sure, she wanted to work on her tan. Not 2 seconds after we switched seats, the first 2 bombs exploded. One moment I was sitting in the chair, laughing, eating, and enjoying the day, and the next was I was on the ground with bodies on top of me. At first, I had no idea what occurred. I saw people screaming, but I couldn't hear anything. The explosions were so loud, I lost all my hearing. Then, as I looked over my shoulder, the third terrorist pulled the detonator of the bomb attached to his chest and blew himself up before my eyes. I can still see it so vividly. It was this bomb that caused most of my injuries. He was only 3 feet from where I was. The first thing I noticed after the bomb stopped were those schoolgirls that had been standing in front of my table. All of them had died. All of them. It was a vision I've never been able to forget, and the one that haunts me most to this day. One of my friends I was sitting with was blown straight out of his seat, landed on his feet, and ended up with only a single cut to his face. In an incredible turn of events I still could not fathom as anything other than luck, fate, the girl with whom I'd switched seats with turned out to be the worst critically injured person to survive. Had I not exchanged seat, that would have been me. It was literally inches that determined who survived, who was injured, and who was killed. The streets were utter chaos. People were screaming, sirens blared, and dismembered bodies were scattered everywhere. Within minutes, hundreds of medical staff and volunteers appeared to help, tag, and identify the wounded and dead. My first instinct after the bomb was that of survival. I did not want to die. I realized during the explosion I had lost my knapsack and my passport was inside, and I began to panic because I didn't want anybody to find my knapsack and think I had died. Or if I was going to die, I wanted people to be able to identify me. After searching through bodies and body parts and debris, I found my knapsack, put it on my back, and waited for someone to come and help me. Eventually, I was tagged and brought by ambulance to the hospital. Over 15 people were murdered that day and 196 wounded, including me. I suffered second and third degree burns to 40% of my body, and my hair was burnt off. I had over 100 nails lodged in my arms and legs and a large bolt embedded in my left foot, and I was permanently lost most of the hearing in my right ear. I was in the hospital for 3 weeks and then was transferred back to Canada to my parents' home in Winnipeg. I required over 6 months of continuous medical care before I could come back to Vancouver and live on my own. In the Hadassah University Hospital, Mount Scopus, I stayed in a room with an Israeli girl named Ruti, who had also been severely injured in the bombing. Ruti's boyfriend took leave from the army and slept on a mattress between our beds with his gun beside him to protect us. Ruti's family became my family. Whatever they did or brought for her, they did for me. The people of Jerusalem also took care of me. Rabbi after rabbi came to visit me and say a prayer or to get my mother's name so they could pray for us at the wall. Religious women brought candles and challah so I could celebrate Shabbat. Strangers came to visit me and bring me gifts or to just say hi and ask if there was anything they could do. Ruti and I were chosen to meet Secretary of State Madeleine Albright at the time and the President of Israel Weizmann. I don't remember much of that visit except Madeleine was wearing ladybug earrings and she said she knew we were both going to be okay because we had sparkles in our eyes. Their visit to Ruti and I made the cover of the New York Times. Several years after the bombing, I became involved with a support group for victims of terrorism called Strength to Strength. You've met Sari already, who survived a bus bombing in 2003. Every year we meet in New York to share our stories, do acts of kindness, and help each other heal. I've met victims of 9/11, both survivors and family members who lost loved ones in the towers. I've met survivors of the Boston Marathon bombing, Air India bombing, the LAX airport shootings, the London subway bombing, and countless other terrorist attacks. Among all these survivors and family members, I have noticed something very interesting. Some of them have made the choice to move on from their tragedy, but others have not. Many people have never been able to resume their lives and are stuck on that very time. For a long time, that was me. When I returned to Vancouver after spending 3 months at my parents' home in Winnipeg, I spent months lying in my bed depressed. I had a lot of time to think about what had happened to me. Why me? Why me? Why me? I asked myself over and over. I needed to make sense of this terrible event, but I found that I could not. Did I deserve to be a victim of terrorism? Was I being punished for something that I had done? If that's true, what did the young schoolgirls do that had died? What had they done to deserve that? I think it's natural when something bad happens to try and blame someone, but I finally had to concede it was not my fault. The bomb blew up. I happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time, and now here I was, my life changed forever, suffering for something that should have never happened. It took a year for me to resume my life and return to full-time work. Time has healed most of the physical wounds, but there are things, many things that are intangible that the terrorists took away from me that day that I will never be able to recover. I am not the same person I was before this. I still suffer tremendous survival guilt. Why did I survive and so many others did not? This is the one question I doubt I'll ever have answers to. I still suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. I have many fears associated with loud noises, crowds, and fireworks because of the booming explosions. Even all these years later, a balloon popping or a car backfiring causes my heart to pound, and my first instinct is to run away. Part of my healing process involved meeting with psychologists and talking through my experience. One thing they especially wanted to help me address was the anger they assumed I was feeling, but in fact, I never felt any anger at all. I have never harbored anger towards the terrorists. Many of you might be thinking, how is that possible? It's because I know these men were born with clean slates. They were not born with hatred in their hearts. They were born innocent, beautiful babies, just like all of us. They were taught to hate the Jews, and that being a suicide bomber was the higher honor they can achieve in life. What chance did these bombers have in life? None. These bombers were victims themselves, victims of hatred, of parents who had passed on the teachings they themselves had been taught. In my opinion, they were victims just like me. It has helped me enormously to remember that. My emotional healing hasn't been easy. I survived and others did not. I walked into a restaurant and chose a particular table, a particular chair, without any idea that my life would depend on such choices. I've had to live with the guilt of surviving, but I worked hard to make sure I did not survive in vain. It has been 22 years since the bombing took place. For me, that has meant 22 years of choosing forgiveness over anger, blame, or hatred. 22 years of trying to be a great daughter, sister, mother, and friend. 22 years of healing and of remembering those who were killed every day. 22 years of feeling grateful that I survived. 22 years of remembering just how close I came to not having this life and being able to share this story with you. I always finish my story with another quote, and it's a book that my sister and brother gave to me during my recovery called The Good Luck Book. The quote reads, "The very best thing in the world that can befall a man is to be born lucky." I often think about that quote and what happened to me. I guess some of you would say I was the unluckiest person in the world because I was at that cafe that day and experienced just trauma, pain, and suffering. But I feel like I have all the luck in the world because I survived, I healed, and I'm here sharing my story with you today. So I know I was born lucky, very lucky indeed. Thank you for listening to my story.
You put her, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your story. Be well. We'll resume after Rachel Frankel's virtual JCC video.
Um, well, Yom Hazikaron means a whole lot to me, but somehow I find it very important to say that it always meant so much to me. I mean, the first, we lost our son, it's going to be 6 years. And the first year after that, somehow, we suddenly got all that extra attention. And people were asking, so how do you feel in Yom HaZikaron? And I was really taken by surprise. I was privileged. My parents made Aliyah many years before I was born. So growing up in Israel, Yom HaZikaron belongs to everybody. It's not some kind of tribute to the families of the fallen, or you stand by someone else in their grief or something like that. So it's more of a shared experience, and so Yom HaZikaron is that day of connecting and standing together, and it's almost like every year renewing your vows, recommitting to being here, to our society, to what it costs to be here. And this experience is very different for many people. I mean, I can't talk for anybody else except myself, but for me, it had hardly changed over the last 60. I mean, from before and after. It's still a very significant time. It's solemn. It's a time that gives people an opportunity to send their hugs physically, or this year virtually. So there's something about it. When I was a child, my parents were in a sabbatical in New York, and I remember spending that year in New York, and there were Memorial Day sales, and it shocked me. To me it was like a blasphemy. What do you mean Memorial Day sales? It's like, let's have I don't know, a Yom Kippur ball, something that it just didn't make sense to me. And I understood then that something, and over the years, it's something about Israeli culture. It stays. I mean, and it's most of the time, okay. It stays away from indulging on the pain. It stays away from creating a culture of martyrs. Like some of our neighbors have. It's more about celebrating life. And life in Eretz Israel for a sovereign Jewish state has prices. So this is the time where you gather around that.
Wow, it's there's so much there. Racheli, tonight is an evening dedicated to faith and to really bringing someone who really is a beacon of light. And I think when people hear the name Racheli Frankel, they think this is the mother of the Jewish people who has taught us about faith. This is the woman who has really taught us how to have emunah, how to have faith in God. And I just want to ask you if you can share with us a little bit about the journey of going through difficulty and how you remain steadfast in your faith when you encounter a very, very difficult challenge. How do you go through that process? Because I think that the coronavirus has challenged people's faith in a very profound way. And
I'm going live. You ready? Why are you talking? Wait, just be quiet and you'll find out. Hi. So we're going to end our program now, so you can join the JCC that's in progress with the interview of Rachel Frankel. Enjoy and join us afterwards for the Levine family's story. Okay, see you in a few.